Hello and welcome to the rounding and significant figures of the GCSE Maths numbers overview. So make sure if you're on YouTube, you go into the description to find the question paper and the mark scheme after you've watched this lecture. If you're on my website, make sure you scroll down, you can see the same downloadable content, the paper and the mark scheme. Try those as best you can, and if at any point you get stuck, reference this video, it will answer any of your questions. And if you still don't understand, you can always try to contact me at asad@teachably.co.uk. And also, if you do want tuition from myself, one-on-one tuition, you can always contact me. There's so many ways to contact me. You can either fill in a form on the website, email me, DM me on my socials, or any of that, and I will get back to you, and then we can sort something out to help you achieve the grade that you want to. So, rounding and significant figures. Rounding questions look simple, but they hide two separate skills. One is decimal places, and the second is significant figures, okay? So they follow sort of different rules, but we'll get into that, so don't worry too much about that. And these are the four things that we need to make sure that we can definitely do. So rounding to a place value, rounding to decimal places, rounding to significant figures, and rounding money. So this is a bit of a special case, but we'll get into why that's the case. So kicking off, rounding to a place value. So find the digit in the place value column you are rounding to, then look at the digit immediately to its right. Right? If that digit is 5 or more, round up. If it's less than 5, round down. Every digit to the right becomes 0. So let's look at an example. So it gives us 3,847, and we want to round to the nearest 100. What does that mean? We want to round to the hundredths column. So what's the hundredths column? The hundredths column is this. Right, the hundredths column is this column right here, okay? Because we've got thousands, we've got hundreds, we've got tens, and we've got units. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to draw a line in the sand, right, so to speak, because this is where we want to round up to. Then we need to look at the number immediately to its right. Is that 5 or more, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, or is it less than 5, so 4, 3, 2, 1. And in this case, it is less than 5. And so what do you do when it's less than 5? You basically don't do anything to this number. Your rounded number becomes 3, 8, because you've not done anything to this. And then anything to the right of the column we're looking at, which we said was the hundreds, just becomes 0. So 0, 0. Okay? So this would be our answer if we were told to round this to the nearest 100. But now let's have the same question, but instead of the nearest 100, let's say the nearest 10. Well, the tens column is right here, remember? And so let's draw a line in the sand, so to speak, again. And we're looking at the number immediately to its right. So if it's 5 or more, you increase by 1, or if it's less than 5, then you don't do anything. And so in this case, we can clearly see that 7 is 5 or more, because 5, 6, 7. And so what we do is we take this number, just this number, nothing else, and we increase it by 1. So instead of having 384, we are going to have 385. And then what happens to everything on the right-hand side of the column just becomes 0. And so just rounding to different significant figures gives you a completely different answer. This is to the nearest 10, and so it's 3850, 3,850. I hope that makes sense. This is very, very crucial to your understanding, or to give your answers in the right answer, in the answer box, exactly how the examiner wants you to represent it. So let's move on. So rounding to decimal places. So there's two ways the examiner can ask you. It can either ask you to round to a significant figure, or it can ask you to round to a decimal place value. And so Count along from the decimal point to the place you are rounding to, then look at the next digit. So again, this is going to come up with significant figures, but I'll show you in an example. If that digit is 5 or more, round the previous digit up by 1. If less than 5, leave it as it is. So the example they're giving us right here is 5.738. So this wants us to round to one decimal place. What's one decimal place? It means one number after the decimal place. So if we look at this, one decimal place, one decimal value after this decimal is just there. And so ideally we want 5.7 because it's just one number after the decimal place. That's all it means. But our rulings still take place here. So if I said I want it to 2 decimal places, we'll have to look at what is to the right of the second number after the decimal place. And so we can see 5.73. This is the second number after the decimal place, so that's where we want to round to. But then we have to look at the number to its right. Is it more than 5 or is it less than 5? In this case, 8 is more than 5. And so what we're going to do is we are going to eliminate that, of course, because it's not to the decimal place threshold we want. But we're also going to increase this 3 to 4. So in this case, it would be 5.74. And that would be to 2 decimal places. Okay? So the rules of significant figures still apply to rounding decimal numbers. It's the same. Moving on, rounding to significant figures. Okay, so this is rounding to a place value, but it's very, very, very similar. Okay, so the first significant figure is the first non-zero digit, reading from the left. So count the required number of significant figures from there, then round using the next digit, exactly as with decimal places and place value as well. So 4,273. Round this to 2 significant figures. So we count from the left and we see how many numbers we have. So 1, 2. That is 2 numbers that are non-zero. And so because these are the first 2 significant figures, we put a line in the sand and then we check if this is 5 or more or 5 or less, and then we either increase or leave. And so because this is more than 5, we are going to increase and then make these 0. And so this is going to be 4,300, like that. So everything becomes 0, and then because this is 7, this increases by 1. Okay, now I'm going to do it again, but in that second example, I'm going to say 3 significant figures. So I want 3 significant figures. 3 significant figures. The first 3 non-zero numbers, so 1, 2, 3, put a line in the sand, check if this is 5 or more. Nope, it's less than 5, so we don't do anything to this number and this becomes 0. So this will become 4270. And this is how you consistently ensure that you understand what the examiner is asking. You just read the question. So I know I was saying significant figures here, but it's because they're so interchangeable. It really means the same thing. You just have to understand this is saying a place value, it's saying nearest 100. So you have to think of the hundreds column, the tens columns, the thousands columns. This is decimal places, but again, the same rule applies. You just have to understand what it's referring to. One decimal place is one number after the decimal place. This right here is the first 3 numbers or the first 2 numbers or whatever significant figure that is non-zero. So for example, I'll just give you a quick one, is that if we had a number 0.0388, if this said I want 2 significant figures for this number, then remember, 0 is not a significant figure. And so we won't count this, we won't count this. We are going to say 2 significant figures from the first non-zero number. And so the significant figures start from here. This is 1, this is 2. And so we're going to draw the line in the sand there. And so this becomes, this is greater than 5, so this becomes 9. And so we are going to have 0.039. And that is to 2 significant figures. Okay, hope that makes sense. Remember, we don't include zeros as significant figures. Moving on. Rounding 0.0389. It's as if it read my mind, right? It's as if I didn't write these lesson slides. To two significant figures. So we'll talk about this for a second, but let's look at this anyways. So it's saying 0.00389. Now, again, not significant, not significant, not significant. We are starting the significance from here. So that's the first significant figure. This is the second significant figure. We draw a line in the sand. Is this 5 or more or less than 5? And it's more than 5. And so this number right here is going to increase by 1. So we're going to have 0.0039. And so this is a perfect example to ensure that we understand what significant figures actually mean. Let's move on. Rounding money to the nearest penny. Okay, so in a question on your GCSE Maths, they're not even going to tell you to round your money. But with money, we always know that money is always to two decimal places. We always know that because you have your pounds, whatever that's going to be, but then you always have your pennies, right? So your 50p, your 43p, your 63p, your whatever. You're not going to have more than 100 pennies. If you have 101 pennies, that extra one goes into the pound area, doesn't it? Because that becomes one extra pound. And so we're always going to have the 0.00 at the end of a money problem. And so in this case right here, if we work out some money to be £24 376 pence, then that doesn't make sense, right? And so the way we're going to round it is we know that we're always going to have two decimal places. And so automatically, without the question even asking, we're always going to draw a line in the sand right there and say this is going to be £24.30. And then if this is 5 or more, we increase this number by 1. And if this is less than 5, we don't do anything. This is greater than 5, so we increase this by 1, so it becomes 38 pence. So this would be £24.38. Okay, so rounding money to the nearest penny. You always do this. Ensure that you get into the habit of this, because in your exam, sometimes they don't even say it. And that is the most important part of this whole thing, is that they don't even say it sometimes. So let's move on. So now we're doing some easy questions. We want to round 3,847 to the nearest 100. So again, very easy, right? I'm going to do this as best I can. So 3,847. We want to round this to the nearest 100. We look at the 100s column. 100s column is right here because this is 800. Put a line right next to it. Check if this is 5 or more. It's not 5 or more, so it's less. So what we do is we make all of this 0 and increase this by 1. So this will then become 3800. If this number was greater than, if it was 5 or more, then this would become 3900. Okay, move on. Round 4273 to two significant figures. Okay, so 4273, two significant figures. We start counting from the first non-zero number. So 4 is non-zero, so this is a significant figure. We want two of them. So one significant figure, two significant figures. We put a line there. We look at this number right here. It's 5 or more, so we're going to increase this by 1. So this will become 4300. And I promise you, once you get into the exam questions I've given you that you can download on my website or in the description, and look at the mark scheme and mark your work, this is going to become like second nature to you. It's very easy work, I promise. Nothing about this is hard, and you just need to get into the motion of doing more examples. So we need to round 0.05237 to three significant figures. We start counting from the first non-zero number. So 0, 0, we don't count those. One significant figure, two significant figure, three significant figure. Put a line in the sand. We look at this number right here. It's more than 5, so we increase this by 1. So our answer is 0.0524. And that's our answer. I promise you this is just repetition. Do all the questions I've told you to do, and I promise you it will become so easy that this will be a thing of the past. Things to avoid, like I said, this is a very easy topic. Rounding a whole number to the nearest 100 or 1000, but forgetting to replace the remaining digits with zeros. For example, 38 instead of 3800. Very important. That example we had, which was 38, let's actually go back to it. If you think that, oh, it wants nearest 100, so just write 38, you're going to get it wrong. You need to remember, these still hold value, but we're not going to give them the digit value. So we're just replacing them with 0. And just like this as well, if it wants two significant figures, yes, it wants two significant figures, the 4 and the 3, but it still wants to remain as 4000. And so you're not going to eradicate the zeros at the end. You're just going to change the numbers to zeros. So don't get rid of them, and don't write 43 because you will get 0 marks on the exam. Treating significant figures the same as decimal places and not realizing leading zeros in a number like this do not count. So remember, decimal place, if it says 2 decimal places, you start counting after the decimal place. If it says significant figures, you start counting from the first non-zero number. So this doesn't matter, these matter, okay? So remember, just always go back to the slides I've told you about. The decimal places, count after the decimal place. The significant figures, count after your non-zero values. Start counting from the first non-zero number. Promise you it's easy. Just get a load of examples down and it will become very easy. Third thing to avoid is looking at the wrong digit to decide whether to round up. For example, checking 2 places along instead of the single digit immediately after. You always, whether it's the place value, decimal place, or significant figures, you always look to the immediate right of where you are going to stop. 2 decimal places, you look at the 2 numbers after the decimal place, and then you look at the third number. Significant figures, you look at the first 2 significant figures if you're rounding to 2 significant figures, then you look at the third significant figure to decide if you're going to go up or down. So it's always the number immediately after where you're stopping, where you're putting your line. And that's why I always put the line in the sand. Fourth thing to avoid, rounding to a number in stages. For example, rounding this to 1 decimal place first, instead of rounding directly from the original figure. So it's not going to make it easier for you, right? So if you just said 4.449 and you want to, let's say, I don't know, let's say you want to round this to 1 significant figure. You don't need to round it to 4.4 first and then say 1 decimal and then basically take this and then go, okay, it's going to be that. Because if at any point during your immediate step you round something up, that can have a knock-on effect to your final answer. So don't try to add extra steps. Just do the first thing and you'll always be correct. So just do it in one go. Don't do it in stages. You'd be surprised, a lot of students do that, but it's because they've not been taught properly how to actually mechanically do this work. And finally, dropping the trailing 0 when rounding money to the nearest penny. For example, £24, 4 pence. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? That's not 4 pence, that's 40 pence. But because you didn't put the 0, it looks wrong. If it was 4 pence, it would be 04. Okay? So remember, with money problems, you always are going to be expected to round to 2 decimal places because that's how our money system works. It's always going to be your pounds and then decimal place and then however many pennies you have. Okay? Always 2 decimal places for pennies. And finally, right, rounding and significant figures come down to finding 1 digit, depending on if it's place value, significant figure, or decimal place, or money, and checking the immediate number to the right of it. And then if it's 5 or more, you increase it by 1. And if it's 4 or less, you don't do anything to that number. Okay? It's very simple and you just need to do practice. So I highly recommend you go to the description or my website to get the exact questions, exam questions in all of the exam board styles so that you can get the practice in and then mark your work with the mark scheme. And then of course you can come back to this video if you get stuck for further explanation. Okay? Honestly, like most things, it's all about practice. That's all it's about. Just finish the questions on this lecture and in the question paper and you'll be fine. If you want my help, if you want me to personally tutor you one-on-one, please reach out. You can contact me, reach out on Instagram or TikTok. You can always DM me, get your parent to get on a call with me, and I will discuss how we've helped hundreds of students get the GCSE Maths grades that they want to achieve. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to helping all of you as best I can. And if that doesn't work for you, then all of these free resources are here for you to help, are here to help you. Okay, so I'm more than happy for you to just come along and benefit from all of this work. Okay, have a lovely day. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next lesson.